So nobody knew, everybody's an expert, so I don't need to explain what we're doing to anybody. Everybody's advanced. Okay, I think before we carry on with our Bhagavad Gita, just a quick chanting, Hari Holy Name Nugget. It's always good to have a holy name nugget after a bit of transcendental sound vibration, is it not? Okay, so here's today's nugget from the book which we've been quoting from, which we get through every day on WhatsApp. And you may even get this, a lot of you, I don't know. But from the Nectarian Ocean of the Holy Name. Prati Padam Purna Amrita Asvadanam. On every step, chanting conveys perfect, sublime nectar. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Everybody knows who Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is? Yes? No? Okay.
Is he there? Yes, he's here.
Yes? Yeah. And this picture right on the right here is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. You see these two gentlemen on these pictures on this one nearest to me is Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who is the father of Srila Prabhupada's guru, Bhaktisiddhanta, who is next to him. That's Prabhupada's guru, and he is his father. And he's not his guru, not Bhaktisiddhanta, but he's his father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So he writes in this connection, the holy name is the bud of the flower of divine love, and is the very abode of astonishing mellows. Such is the power Krishna manifests, that when his holy name starts to blossom a little further, it reveals then his own divine forms and qualities. So as we've discussed many times before, and by this chanting we begin to have realization, yes? chanting and reading Srila Prabhupada's books. And Krishna then reveals himself. The more that we get into the chanting, the more realizations and revelations we get. And Krishna will reveal himself the more we chant properly and with attention and with love. And the process of developing that is by chanting. So, it's the means and the end of the whole process, actually. As Srila Prabhupada said, everything, all these pictures, all of these books, all of this beautiful prasadam, this food, it's all there for, and these lovely temples, and all these beautiful deities, and everything else is there for one reason, right? He said, and that reason is to help us to chant this mantra, which is, as we discussed before, the most powerful way to develop our spiritual consciousness, to achieve self-realization, and to achieve the highest goal of our existence, which is to have build this relationship with Krishna. There's nothing higher. Thus, my heart is abducted and taken directly to Krishna. Blossoming fully, the flower of the holy name takes me to Vraj and reveals to me his own love dalliance. The name gives to me my own eternal spiritual body, keeps me right by Krishna's side, and completely destroys everything related to this mortal frame of mind. So we're detaching ourselves from this material stuff. Yeah. It's a big step, actually. But we have to detach ourselves at some point. If we don't do it this way, then death will come at some point and take us from it. So, the name of Krishna is a transcendental touchstone, a mine of all devotional mellows. It is eternally liberated and the embodiment of pure rasa. When all impediments to the pure chanting of the holy name are taken away and destroyed, then my happiness will know its true awakening. That's from Sri Nam Mahatmya 628. That's written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, one of a very powerful personality in our parampara, our line, our discipline line. And then a little, Dear Harinam Prabhu, please remove the impediments to pure chanting so that I may know your true awakening in my life. Please help me. Hare Krishna. Okay, very nice. These are realized souls, these people who are writing this stuff. They're very much on a level where we're not even close to approaching it, but they have, they're very elevated beings, who have very high levels of realization, understanding. So, and that comes across in their words, doesn't it? In the way you can see that they're manifesting in their lives. When you examine their lifestyles, examine everything about them, check it out. They're amazing personalities, right? We see how Srila Prabhupada, is such an amazing person. Just like you were saying, just going into the room where you used to stay at the manor, there's the whole atmosphere is bang, it hits you, doesn't it? Beautiful. And he's left the planet in the 1970s. Anyway, thank you very much. Okay, I'll hand over to His Grace Premaniketan for our next step on the Bhagavad Gita journey, yes? Hare Krishna, thank you very much.
जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo 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 Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So, we will continue reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1. Today we will read from verses 14. I think Mukunda Prabhu read up to verse 30 last week. So we'll read verses 14 to 19. That follows a certain pattern. But before I forget, from next week we're starting a very, very special month. It's the month of Kartik. And in the month of Kartik there's a lot of pastimes of Krishna took place. And one of the most important pastimes of Krishna was Damodar Leela, where Mother Yashoda kind of chastised him with a stick, running behind, chasing him. So Mukunda Prabhu, I'll request he really kind of narrates the pastime very well. So he will do that next week. And the Kartik month begins from the 6th of October. And in this special month, everything whatever we do, it magnifies by thousands of times. So I was listening to a class by Vigyan Goswami Maharaj today, Bhakti Vigyan Goswami Maharaj. And he was saying that we should take a vow to do something extra, and also we should take a vow something to get rid of from our lives. So two processes. But the one who is more important is to do something extra in this month, like chanting, or reading some new book, or following certain regime that every day I'm going to read this book, this many pages, something like that. But the purpose is to get one step further in our endeavor to please Krishna. Our endeavor to please Krishna. That's the sole purpose what we're doing here. But this month is very, very special, and Krishna is supremely merciful in this month. And also something to give up. Yeah? Something that we have too much attachment to something, some kind of, maybe materialistic activities or some kind of desires or ego, or, we get frustrated by some activities of someone, like husband and wife, you don't like it. There's some kind of, let me become more tolerant. Yeah, something to give up as well. Yeah. But it has to happen simultaneously. We cannot give up something and not try to endeavor to please Krishna, because whatever we try to give up, if we do not fill that gap with something, Krishna consciousness, just like Ravana's head, it will sprung up again. We shoot arrow, I won, and another head comes up. Ego, frustration, madness, a lot of things. 10 heads of Ravana, they sprung up again and again. So we have to give some positive option. So when we give up something, there has to be something to fill it up, isn't it? It has to work simultaneously. So that's what Bhakti Vigyan Goswami Maharaj was saying. And in his class, he also said that in this very month, Samudra Manthan is churning of the ocean took place. When the Danavas, means demons, and Devatas, the demigods, they joined hands together to churn the milky ocean. And what came out first? Nectar came last. But we all talk about nectar. We all talk about nectar. But what came first of the churning of the ocean? Huh?
Poison.
Poison came first, and Amrit, nectar, came last. Just like when we start cleaning the house, what happens? We thought that we had come to clean the house, but the house starts to look more dirty because you remove stuff and what you see is dirt. And that's what happens in bhakti. When we start to clean up our hearts, a lot of things start to stare at us. This is me. I've got this much ego, this much. And a lot of other things may happen. Yeah. So it may appear that I'm facing poison when we try to advance in the path of bhakti. But that's the part of purification. When Prabhu does surgery in the ENT, so he's ENT specialist, when he opens up things, what do you see? Bloody. You kind of chop something, you make a scar there, you open up something, it all becomes very messy, very bloody. For someone non specialist, it will look ghastly. What are you doing? Yeah? But once they are done the surgery, everything looks very pristine. But in the beginning, the wounds look very, because everything is fresh, sutured and everything looks very swollen and very dirty. But it starts to heal. The healing process begins. And there's a pain. There's chance of infection there. A lot of things can happen. Yeah? If we're not careful. We have to be careful. Bhakti, path of bhakti is like two-edged sword. You have to be very, very careful. Because things that come to you, you may become puffed up. I have more knowledge, people respect me, and so forth. And that comes with it. And becomes a problem. To be really careful. But if you take a vow that I'm going to do this, and take some vow that I'm going to remove this, at least make an attempt, make a dent. Yeah. The easiest thing to do is to chant more rounds, 1 or 2 or 3 extra rounds, possible. If you're chanting 2 rounds, just increase by 1 more round. Don't do too many. It becomes a problem then, burden. Just by bit and taste it. Or offer nice bhoga to Krishna, that's easy to do. Yeah. Whole month Krishna is very merciful. He likes to eat a lot of things, goodies, offer. Easy to do. Something. Yeah. But we'll hear the pastime next week. But from the 6th, what we normally do in this month is offer a candle to Krishna. Yeah, candle of love. Endeavor to come closer to Him. And there is a special prayer. It's called Damodar Ashtakam. You can YouTube, it's there. And play it and learn there's very nice meaning. I'm sure next week we'll discuss a bit more about it. But you can play it and offer candle to Krishna. Every single day. If you can do in the morning, do in the morning. You can do in the evening after work. You come back, do in the after work. It's a very nice prayer. Yeah, we'll sing next week that prayer. And let's read the verses. So last week Mukunda Prabhu, he talked about, I think mostly we focused on the pastimes of Bhishma. And Bhishma was an exalted personality. He was pure devotee of the Lord. But Krishna chastised him quite heavily when he committed mistakes. So mistakes happen. And that's life. We have we are in this world. Let's read. Tata svetar haye yukte mahati syandane sthito madhava pandavaschaiva divyau sankho pradhatmatu. On the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna is stationed on a great chariot drawn by white horses, sounded their transcendental counsels. Who knows the pastimes of this great chariot? Who donated it to Arjuna? Anyone?
Indra? No?
Close guess. Close guess.
Hanuman is sitting on top of the...
Yes, Hanuman is sitting on the top. So there is a pastime on that. There's always stories to tell. So the story is this, that once, so there was a Kandovan. Kandovan is the forest where a lot of demons lived. And after the Indraprastha Yajna, because so much ghee was offered to Agni, the fire god, he has some indigestion. So he wanted, so for him, the treatment was to have more fire. So he wanted to burn that fire. But the problem was Indra has some other motive and he wanted to save it. But Indra is the kind of heavenly, he's the boss of the heaven. So every time Agni Devata, fire god, he wanted to burn it, he showered, kind of poured rain down there. So he wasn't being successful. So he approached Krishna and Arjuna. Krishna and Arjuna. And they said, okay, we'll do it for you. But Krishna was there with Arjuna. So he asked, you must get something in return. Because Krishna knew that battle is coming, Mahabharata battle is coming. And you must get something in return if you're going to do favor to Agni. So Arjuna basically went and he showered arrows of fire and burned the forest. And Lord Krishna, he kind of, with the chakra, he managed to kind of dissuade the rains. So there was no downpour of rain on the forest. So Agni was satisfied. The fire god was satisfied. So Agni then kind of told Arjuna, there's going to be battle, Mahabharata, and I'll give you a chariot. So this chariot came from Agni, fire god. It was an invincible chariot. There's a lot of description about it in Mahabharata. And what were the other qualities of this chariot? Then who else came to be in the chariot to make it more invincible? Hanuman. So Hanuman sat on the flag of the chariot. And who else was there on the chariot?
Krishna.
Most important, yes, Krishna. Krishna became charioteer. So Krishna became charioteer. So one of the lectures I was hearing today morning was that the verse, in the next verse, it begins with Panchajanyam Rishikeshu. So Rishikesh is the master of senses. So Krishna is the master of senses. So when Krishna sat on the chariot and he became charioteer, and what do? They basically guide everything, isn't it? So Krishna became guide of Arjuna. And what do senses do to us? Senses guide us, isn't it? The kind of senses we have, we get attracted towards those things. So if our senses are not purified, on Friday evening, pub, alcohol, drunk, gone. Or smoke, or do something else. Because our senses are tuned into that kind of lower kind of taste. But once our senses are tuned into Krishna consciousness, they become our guide. Yeah? There's nice fragrance of Krishna's flower. Some devotees brought flower. And we smell, and that reminds me of Krishna, reminds us of Krishna. They have prasadam offered, that reminds us of Krishna. Yeah? So our senses are tuned into eating prasad. So if we eat kind of something that is not offered to Krishna, our senses will repel. No, I don't want to eat it. Yeah? And that's what happened to Arjuna. Yeah? Krishna was the master of Arjuna's senses. Krishna became master of Arjuna's senses. He was guiding Arjuna. And that's what, so lesson from this is that we should allow Krishna to become master of our senses. So he can guide us in the right path. But we have to make endeavor. Then Krishna takes the charge. Yeah. And so for many devotees, now that they won't eat anything other than Krishna Prasad. Whatever you eat or whatever you drink, Yad Juhos Yasasanasi, Krishna says, whatever you eat, offer to me. Whatever you eat, offer to me. Yad Juhos. Simple. That's the most simple thing we can do, that whatever we eat, we just offer to Krishna. And for that we need to know what Krishna likes. We just cannot offer anything to Krishna. Krishna tells what he likes. Offer to Krishna. That's love, isn't it? If you love anyone, before we consume that thing, we want to first offer to that person. And that's how we reciprocate love, isn't it? That's how we reciprocate. Just say that I love you, Krishna, and sit idle. And here Krishna is saying, I'm the Rishikesh. Yeah, I'm the master of senses. Before you put into your tongue and belly, offer it to me. I'll just purify it. And then you happily consume it. Very simple process. So that's the story of chariot. That came from that. What else Agni gave? Fire god gave to Arjuna. What's the story of Gandiva? Bow. Gandiva bow. Yeah. So he was a very kind of ferocious fighter. And the bow Gandiva was given to him by Agni. Yeah? But who did that bow belonged to? Brahma, you're right. Yeah, so Brahma created, he made the bow. So he made 3 bows. Want to step further? Sarang, Lord Rama's bow, and Pinaka. There were 3 bows he created. And they were created during the fight between demigods and demons. So the Gandiva bow was given to Indra. Yeah? Then Indra gave it to Vayu. And when Agni, his fire god, he requested Vayu to give it to Arjuna. So that's how the bow came to him. That's the famous bow. But what happened to the chariot and the bow at the end of Mahabharata? He had the same bow.
Got fire and disappeared.
When he was returning from Dwarka, from Prabhas, even the simple dacoits, they arrested Arjuna. His bow wouldn't fire All energy had gone, disappeared. He was defeated. And he was perplexed. What's happening to me? I'm the same personality who was so victorious. The entire creation was, hey, well done. You're the same person who was completely defeated by even a, because Krishna withdrew all the potency. Because he was getting, big person. He realized Krishna had withdrew the potency. So his bow wouldn't fire, finish. And that was the sign they decided now it's time to go. So the next verse is Panchajanyam Rishikesho Devadattam Dhananjaya Paundram Dadno Mahashankham Bhimakarma Vrikodaraha. Lord Krishna blew his conch shell called Panchajanya. Arjuna blew his, the Devadatta. And Bhima, the ferocious eater and performer of Herculean tasks, blew his terrified conch shell called Paundra. What's the story of Panchajanya? The story of everything, is. See, what you have to look into the details. This Sanjaya is telling this story to Duryodhana's father Dhritarashtra, who is blind. He was so attached to his son, he was falsely hoping that my son will be victorious. And here Sanjaya was a devotee of Lord. And Vasila Prabhupada in the previous verse he says, Jayatu Pandava Putram Yosham Paksha Janardana. So Janardana is Krishna. So wherever there is Janardana, that Paksha, that side will be victorious. So he is particularly quoting every details to give information to Dhritarashtra, the father of Duryodhana, that your sons are going to be not victorious. Accept it. Don't have false hope. And he was the king, yet he was crippled by the false affection and false love for his son. Lord Krishna blew his conch shell called Panchajanya. So Panchajanya, so one Lord Krishna and Sudama, they went to Sandipani Muni's ashram. Yes. So went there and sometimes the two stories can get mixed up, isn't it, in the brain?
The students of Sandipani.
Yes, students of Sandipani Muni. And at the end they wanted to, so they went and asked him what good dakshina, means what can we offer you? And Sandipani Muni had one son. And he went to play one day and he got lost in the ocean. So he said, if you want to give any Guru Dakshina, we should get my son back. So Krishna inquired, well, he knew. So he went to ocean, dived in all the way with Arjuna. And there was a demon in the form of conch. So he killed that demon. There's a long story. I'm not going to go in detail because time is precious here. And that Panchajanya, that has 5 kind of spikes of the conch. So they killed him, and that conch became Krishna's conch. So that's the conch, Panchajanya. Now you can imagine how huge that demon was and how huge Krishna's conch was. It was not like our Dankati Prabhu blows. It's tiny one compared to Krishna's was huge. Massive one. So the noise that created what kind of shattered the hearts of the side of Duryodhana's army. And then there is a story of how the Devadatta conch of Arjuna came. That's a long story again. I will not go in detail. And the Pondra was Bhima's. Bhima's got his conch again by going to close to Dwarka in Prabhas area. I'll read the purport. Purport is very nice, Srila Prabhupada. Lord Krishna is referred to as Rishikesh in this verse because he is the owner of all senses. Our senses don't belong to us, that we claim, even they belong to Krishna. Krishna is the master of all senses. The living entities are part and parcel of him, and therefore the senses of the living entities are also part and parcel of his senses. Yeah? Quite confusing, isn't it? Our senses also belongs to Krishna only. The impersonalists cannot account for the senses of the living entities, and therefore they are always anxious to describe all living entities as senseless or impersonal. The Lord, situated in the hearts of all living entities, directs their senses, but he directs in terms of the surrender of the living entity, and in the case of pure devotee, he directly controls the senses. Can you see? Once we become devotee of Krishna, he will facilitate in such a way that your senses are controlled by Krishna. He takes charge. He takes over. Yeah? Your taste buds will change. They will never be satisfied without eating prasad. Here on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the Lord directly controls the transcendental senses of Arjuna. Yeah, he is controlling everything. And thus his particular name is Rishikesh. The Lord has different names according to his different activities. For example, his name is Madhusudana because he killed the demon of the name called Madhu. Maybe some other time we'll talk about this story. His name is Govinda because he gives pleasure to the cows and to the senses. His name is Vasudeva because he appeared as the son of Vasudeva. His name is Devaki Nandan because he accepted Devaki as his mother. So Krishna accepted Devaki as mother. What happens to us? Our case, we are just imposed based on our past karma, deeds. We didn't choose our parents, our karma, yeah? They chose the kind of parents we, yeah? That's a difference. He accepted Devaki as his mother. His name is Yashodananda because he awarded his childhood pastime to Yashoda, yeah? At Vrindavan. His name is Parthasarthi because he worked as charioteer of his friend Arjuna. Similarly, his name is Rishikesh because he gave direction to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Because he was directing. And how do the master of the chariot drives? Directs. Yeah? They kick left or right. So they use their turn right, they will kick the charioteer with the right leg. The left, they will kick the charioteer with the left leg. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he accepted the role of a charioteer. He was kicked by Arjuna, his devotee and friend. That's what Krishna becomes. Arjuna is referred to as Dhananjaya in this verse because he helped his elder brother in fetching wealth when it was required by the king to make expeditions for different sacrifices. Similarly, Bhima is known as Brikodara because he could eat as ferociously as he could perform Herculean tasks, such as killing the demons, Hidimba. So the particular types of conch blown by the different personality on the side of Pandavas, beginning with the lords, were all very encouraging to the fighting soldiers. On the other side, there was no such credits nor the presence of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Director, nor that of Goddess of Fortune. So they were predestined to lose the battle. And that was the message announced by the sounds of the conch shells. Now let's read the verses 16 to 18. Ananta Vijayam Raja Kunti Putro Yudhishthira Nakulah Sadevascha Sugho Shamari Pushpako Kashyascha Parameshwasa Shikhandi Cha Maharatha Dishtudimno Viratascha Satyaki Parajitaha Drupado Draupadeyascha Sarvasha Prithvi Pate Sabhadrascha Mahabahu Shankanadam Prithak Prithak. King Yudhishthira. Now just look at the clever part of Sanjaya, that he is calling Yudhishthira a king. Yeah? He just come back from Agyatwas, from exile. And Sanjaya is calling Yudhishthira as a king. So he's telling Dhritarashtra that you lost this battle. The king is already there. The son of Kunti blew his conch shell. The Ananta Vijay and Nakula and Shahadev built the Sughosha and Mani Puspaka. The great archer, the king of Kashi. There's a very nice story of king of Kashi. Sometime tell the story. The great fighter, Shikhandi. Shikhandi was there. Dishtudimna, Virata, the unconquerable Satyaki, Drupada, the sons of Draupadi and the others. O king, such as the mighty armed sons of Subhadra, all blew their respective conch shells. The verse 19. The blowing of these different conch shells became uproarious, vibrating both in the sky and on the earth. It shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. So this is where, before the battle is beginning, they're all making tremendous noise just to encourage their soldiers to increase positivity. Yes, we're going to be victorious, let's fight. And from the next verse, the real dilemma begins. Yeah, this is the foundation has been created for Krishna to talk about the sublime message of Bhagavad Gita. From the next week, the bewilderment of Arjuna begins. He will go into severe anxiety, panic attack, breakdown. Everything will begin. That's what. Any questions? If we had time, I would have gone into describing each kind of names mentioned in that verse. It's a very nice verse, very detailed. It has a lot of deep meaning that why Sanjaya chose to name only those people. And particularly Shikhandi, Satyaki was the commander-in-chief of Krishna's army, and he took side of Pandavas and many other pastimes. They're all quite meaningful. All of those names are very, very important. Yeah. Yes?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Just wonder whether you could say something about why Krishna takes control of a pure devotee's senses and not taking control of a non-devotee's senses, because it would seem counterintuitive. Because if a pure devotee is surrendered, he's purified his senses, and maybe doesn't need Krishna to then take control of his senses. But if there's a devotee who's not a pure devotee, well, that devotee could probably do with Krishna taking control of his senses. Say something about that, please.
Krishna, that's a very deep question. The thing is this. Srila Prabhupada lives into this statement. Ye yatha mam prapadante tam sataiva bhajamyam. To the degree we surrender, Krishna takes control of our lives. And same thing applies to senses. If you surrender our senses and allowing Krishna to take over, because Arjuna allowed Krishna to take over everything, whatever he's supposed to do after this battle. I mean, during the battle and after. What other people do is do not allow Krishna to enter into their life. Do not allow Krishna to take over. Krishna is the master of senses to everyone, whether they are karmi or they are devotee. Krishna is Rishikesh. So Krishna is the master of senses of every living being. And Krishna is the master of all of us, whether we are devotee or not devotee. But what happens is, just like rain, Krishna's mercy is falling on everyone. People who are clever, they do their hands like this and drink that nectar. People who do not realize, they keep their hands like this. The nectar won't fall, the mercy won't fall on them. So Krishna is master anyways. Krishna is taking charge. That's what Srila Prabhupada is saying, that Krishna is the master of senses for every single living entity. But devotees realize it and allow consciously, because Krishna doesn't force anything on us. Even though he remains a master, but he's that kind of master, he wants us to use our free will of surrenderance. And again, at the class I was listening today of Bhakti Vigyan Gosai Maharaj, he said, the real bhakti begins when we enter into Sharanagati. So when we enter into Sharanagati, Krishna takes over complete charge, including senses, and they become transcendental. And Krishna happily takes over the charge. The real bhakti begins when we have Sharanagati. So Sharanagati to Guru, Sharanagati to every kind of parampara, and finally Krishna. So ye yathaman prabhadyante stam tathaiva bhajamyaham. We feel it, others don't feel. So Krishna's energy, like last week we went to a devotee's place and we were talking about how Mahamaya, there's Durga, she is kind of making us dance through the three agencies. Yeah? Three agencies. Traigunya Vishaya Loka. The entire world is governed by the three energies. Now choice is ours whether we want to govern by them or we turn to Yog Maya, where Krishna is facilitating activities for us. So Yog Maya and Mahamaya, they're the same. Yog Maya transforms into Mahamaya. So the people who are materialistic, they perceive Krishna's energy, Krishna's mercy in the form of Mahamaya. Because Mahamaya is a very exalted devotee of Krishna. Perfect devotee. 100% perfect devotee of Krishna. But choice is ours. Whether we want her to help us, means help us to progress in the path of bhakti, then we can go into the route of Yoga Maya, or we stay in Mahamaya's clutches, that's called Maya, and dance as a puppet. Whether we dance in the hand of Krishna as a puppet, or we allow Mahamaya to play the trick with us. Choice is ours. So Krishna is Rishikesh. He is the master of senses to every living being. But people who surrender to Krishna, Krishna specifically becomes merciful and takes over the charge. And that's what Srila Prabhupada has explained.
He dwelt on that force. Yeah. So all conditioned souls have the choice. For whatever we do, we have a little bit of choice in what we can do. So if we are putting that choice in the right place, then obviously you will go towards Krishna. But if your choice is towards material enjoyment, then you continue on this. Krishna is not going to force you. It is about your choice. And because he has given that little bit of choice to us, most of us misuse it rather than use it. So that is why some people, so he doesn't take over anybody. Only if you want him to take over, he will take over. If you don't want him to take over, then he will say, okay, you progress, you learn this maybe in a few million lifetimes. Now you have got a chance, this human body, and this is the only incarnation for us where we can progress. But once you go to any other life, then you don't have progress. You just need to follow the natural course.
Mukunda Prabhu, do you want to say something?
No, I think that's very clear.
Hari Hari.
This Mukunda or that Mukunda?
No, both Mukunda Prabhu. They are very exalted devotees, both of you. Out of humility, Prabhu has asked the question. And thank you. Okay. Any more questions, or we can start our thing? Let's go.
Harinam Sankirtan Jagya ki jai. Harinam Sankirtan Jagya ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Shri Prabhupada.
Very much is Kadashi today, so I think most of the feast, the supper is the Kadashi supper.
Krishna Parivar Jiva Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Hare